Welcome to today's North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame YouTube channel interview. It's a great honor to have a gentleman who's a 2007 North Tonawanda Football Hall of Famer. An interesting story, to say the least. From Baldwinsville, New York, where he serves as a youth pastor for the Word of Life Assembly of God Ministry outside of Syracuse. Please welcome Jeremiah J. Poulsen. How you doing today?
Doing good. Thanks, Ed. Thanks. I feel like I should be running out of a tunnel after that. Some introduction there. Thank you.
Well, you know what? Maybe we can do that. So, we can put the pads on one more time and give you a helmet and you show us how it's done,
Yeah. I don't know. My chiropractor might warn me against that these days.
Go over to Liverpool High School, talk to the athletic director and see if you can borrow, a set of pads and equipment and strap it on there for one last time.
Yeah.
Want to thank you so much for joining me today. I want to talk to you about your high school career at North Tonawanda. And speaking with your brother, I know you guys were originally from Tonawanda and you moved and your brother being a couple years older than you probably were about 3 years old when you guys moved over to North Tonawanda, 3, maybe 5 years old. What do you remember about those early years and then in Tonawanda and then coming over to North Tonawanda?
The earliest memories I have is actually the amazement of how it felt so far away, but at the same time so close. So I was a little bit older than that when we came over. I think I started at Gilmore Elementary School. It was my first school in North Tonawanda, and I just remember right away feeling like fish out of water, but at the same time was given the liberty to go back and forth to old friends' houses. So I stayed in touch quite a bit with friends from Tonawanda. A number of families were kind of getting out of the projects at the same time. So it was great to be able to stay connected to them. And I was too young to really understand at that point the tension, the TNT rivalry, that. So it was really just about friends and trying to make new friends as we came in.
I know you played football in high school. Did you play youth football as well in North Tonawanda?
No, I honestly did not even know that youth football or Pop Warner was a thing until I think I met Ed Pringle, and he was doing like both and I was like, what is this? What there's other options for football, and so that's when I found out about it. But no, my first experience with football was sitting on a bicycle watching my older brother play freshman football and wishing I could be out there, but wondering if I could ever actually hold up in that setting. So yeah, I didn't know anything about the youth stuff, but once I saw them playing, I was like, this looks like fun.
You played modified and JV football at rather young ages, young grades, weren't you? 7th and 8th grade?
Yeah. So 7th grade, I started. So in 7th grade, I think it was what happened was 6th grade. I was watching my older brother play football, and I was on a bike, started watching them, and I remember them asking me to run to Taco Bell for some burritos and tacos after practice. So I was just like, any way I can become part of this crew, I wanted to become part of it. Like, they're tough, if I can get these guys to protect me in some way, I'm good. And so I would run over, get Taco Bell, bring it back. They'd hand me $4 or $5, and at that point you could probably get like a dozen tacos for that. And then the following year in 7th grade, I started playing. Now I started with freshmen. I don't remember there being a modified option at that point. It was freshman in 7th grade, and then in 8th grade I played JV, and then in 8th grade again I played JV again. So a little bit of my story. I know we chatted a little bit about this, but I actually spent extra time in junior high, and that's what part of my journey was. The amazing mercy and grace of junior high teachers putting up with me for an extra year in North Tonawanda. So I had a couple of years of extra time spent mentoring me in junior high.
You also played football as a freshman on varsity, and that's pretty much unheard of. What type of physical specimen were you, and what did the coaches see in you to elevate you to varsity as a freshman?
That there's kind of a mixture as far as physical prowess. That was Dan's gift. Dan was big, strong, fast, and I was just I don't want to say short, fat, and slow, but it was I wasn't that. But what happened was I came in and I was pissed off at the world. Honestly, I was angry, and football gave me the place to let it all out and it be okay. And for me to just come at somebody as fast and as hard as I could, and feel better about life as a result. I don't know if that'll work with the counselors these days, but it worked for me. And so in ninth grade, when I had the chance to try out for varsity, it was all about heart and drive and fight, and an expression of a young man who is very who had a lot of things to work out. And so I was glad that I had football to be able to work that out in. And all the coaches were very supportive and gave me the chance that I had. I actually tried out, didn't expect to start. And as a result of a tragic accident off season, the guy who started in front of me, I think he broke his leg in a motorcycle accident. And so as a result, I was able to get the starting guard position. And so I just gave it everything I had. And at 5'6", 215 pounds, I was playing next to guys that were just ginormous and super, super cool.
You also get to play alongside your brother as well, too. Talk about that experience as well.
Yeah, it was terrible and awesome all at the same time. Like I said, I was 5'6", about 215 pounds, and he was, I think in high school, he was, I forget exactly, but he was probably around at least 6 foot. And I think he was wrestling at like 250, 275. It was definitely the unlimited weight class. But for that size, he was incredibly fast. So playing with him, I watched his video and he was talking about the chutes, and they were the steel like cage that they would put you in. And it was all about keeping your head low, low center of gravity and explosiveness off the ground. And I just remember that being like that was the gauntlet for me. That was like, prove it, you got to prove yourself in the chutes if you're going to be a lineman. You get in there and it's just battle, head to head battle. And one of the recreational activities, I think, was if there were any siblings on the team, it was put these brothers head to head and see who comes out on top. And as you can imagine, I saw that coming and thought, oh no, what is this going to look like? So there was a couple moments where, we went head to head, and he pretty much put a whooping on me. But I got, as teenage brothers go, I thought, what, this can't keep going. So I'm going to bring out the big guns, and hopefully he's watching it. I was taking it easy on him for the first few rounds, and then I realized, okay, I got to bring out the full game face. And I'm going to admit something to you, Ed, and to the internet at large. I actually got a little bit dirty. I brought my elbow up underneath his face mask real quick on the whistle and put it to him one time. And as a result, I beat him that one time, but then the next time, I think he was holding some back for all the times before that, and he let it all out on that next drive, that next time in the chutes. So it was good though. That's fun in practice. I had the privilege of playing next to a lot of great linemen and fullbacks and different people, and playing next to him was really special because I got a chance to work together with my brother in a productive way on a football field, and who gets a chance to do that? It was really cool.
You played 92 to 96. What are some of your memories about Coach Anastasi and the staff?
I kind of alluded to this earlier. I was a mess as a junior hire. Just going through a lot of different things internally, struggling with emotional balance and knowing what to do, what to say, who to say it to. I had trouble with authority, and the coaches through my high school time with them, from not just the varsity coaches, not just Anastasi and Coach Hop and Coach Sheasley and Coach Burke, not just those guys, but the staff of all the teams that I was able to play with were part of my growing up, not just emotionally, but physically and mentally. And they became this kind of scaffolding around me to help me understand what it meant to be, a human being, what it meant to be a man, what it meant to be somebody who valued hard work and integrity. And Coach Anastasi was a huge part of that. He brought those men together. They believed in me. They believed in our team. They believed in every kid. It felt like every kid that came on the field had an equal shot. And so as a result, when I would hear those guys call out a play, or when I would hear those guys give direction or correction to me off the field, it became a way for me to grow up. And so, to this day, I feel like I'm a miracle of the North Tonawanda football program and wrestling program too. So those coaches just made a huge difference in my life. And, I'm thankful for this opportunity because it gives me a chance to say thank you to them in a way that I've longed for a while.
You became, in your senior year, second team All Western New York. In 3 years, you amassed 207 tackles. You were rather busy on the line, and that's on the defensive side of the ball. And you also played both ways, correct?
Yeah. I really I just loved being on the field. I loved running on kickoffs. And once I learned about long snapping, I was like, wow, I think I can do this. And at 5'6", 210 pounds, I wasn't the fastest guy on the team. I had to figure out a way to make myself valuable as possible so they couldn't sit me, right? So I just run like as hard and as fast as I could anytime something was going on and just hit something, just go and hit something. And so I tried to do that every play. And as a result, had the chance to play defense, offense, and special teams. And I felt like, honestly, as a teenager, as a guy in high school, I thought I'm failing if I'm not in the whole game. And so while that's not true, it just felt like I got to be in there. Like went from the first whistle to the last whistle, I want to be going. And honestly, there was part of me that was I had the realization that I probably wasn't going to be playing football in college. I didn't have the physical build that anybody was looking for. So I knew that this was going to be my one shot. This is going to be my chance to leave it on the field. And so all that busyness, all that desire to be in the game as much as possible, I think came from this knowledge that, this is it. This is my chance. And I don't want to take it easy. I don't want to regret missing out.
You wrestled at North Tonawanda as well too. What impact did Coach Fire have on helping you, molding you and helping you grow as a young adult?
Huge. I'll just say both Dan and Dave Fire and their teams that they brought together, the friends that I made on those teams and on the football teams, but coaching specifically, there's an ethic, there's a work ethic that goes into wrestling that I had not known before wrestling started for me. And so when Dan and Dave, they played this really neat balance of technician and visionary. And so Dave would be the one that would teach you the moves and the drills. And then Dan would come in and give the talks. And so there were moments where I clearly was at my limit of self-discipline. I was clearly at my limit of willingness to push myself beyond a certain level. And Dan and Dave both played a critical role in helping me understand the difference between what you think you can do and what you actually can do. So super grateful for them and for the time that they spent with us, not just in the wrestling room, because if you know those guys, it's not just about wrestling for them. It wasn't just ever about wrestling. It was about developing young men. It was about helping them know the difference between right and wrong, between hard work and laziness, between show up and give it all or not. And so they held you to that and loved you through it in a tough way and in a good way that this world needs. So super grateful for them on tons of levels.
What type of techniques did you learn in wrestling that you applied to varsity football?
Oh, the duck under. The duck under, which was like perfect for a short guy like me on a big guy like, whoever else I'm going up against. There's not many linemen out there that are taller than, or that are shorter than me. So as soon as I learned a better way of getting past somebody than bull rushing or trying to, cut out underneath them, there was just so many movements, balance, physical balance, the grab and the grabs, the pulls, the kind of jujitsu, judo type of stuff that happens as a result of learning wrestling. The footwork, the handwork, all of those elements of wrestling were critical on the line where I was daily in the trenches, so yeah, it was super helpful. There was a downside of it though, that I didn't know if I was going to be able to recover from. I knew that I couldn't get on varsity as a 215 pounder because at the time we were just stacked there. There were guys that came before me that were just rocking. Like there's no way. And I found out pretty quick I wasn't strong enough to get into that space. So between my sophomore and junior year, I think it was between my sophomore and junior year, I actually dropped like 35 pounds to get into a weight class that I thought I could wrestle and compete in. Actually, it was between 9th and 10th grade. I dropped a bunch of weight and I thought for sure, I'm going to lose my spot on the football field. But what happened was it just made me better. It made me better and faster. And my cardio was better and I was still able to play that guard position and all those other positions even better than I was at 215, even though I was 170 pounds, so I was thankful for the wrestling training in the off season too, because that brought about better football play.
Your brother, Dan, was a great athlete, became a state wrestling champion, great success with football as well too. Did you ever feel that you were playing in his shadows?
That's a good question. There were doubts. I guess in my mind, I would be lying not to say that I didn't think a few times that, am I just on this team because of my big brother? Am I like, did he carve the way for me to be able to get here? And so I know that's not exactly what you're asking. It's more of like, was my success overshadowed by his? But there were, in addition to that, there were just moments where I'm thankful for those moments, because in those moments of self-doubt and wonder, it actually was something that caused me to respond in a way that was like, well, if that's true, you need to prove that that's not true. You need to prove, Jeremiah, that you deserve a spot on this team. And so that was an increased kind of fire that would burn in me of like, okay, no matter what, I'm not going to give anybody a reason to accuse me of being here because of him. And then as far as the overshadowing goes, as a teenager, we in our family, I just wanted him to succeed like crazy. I don't know if I ever thought like, oh, I wish people would stop talking about Dan. That never crossed my mind. I was always happy for him and excited for what was going on. And even like, there were moments where I was, we're at the New York State tournament watching him win the state award. It was like 11:30 at night. And there's nothing in us and anybody other than total elation and celebration, not just for Dan, but for North Tonawanda wrestling, for the club, for the school system to have a representative be there. It was just overjoyed at that. And also I'll just say this, the community of football never made me feel like I was less than. It was always this band of brothers that came together to raise the flag of North Tonawanda and to be something that only we could be for the time that we were there. So I guess the short answer is no, but there's a lot of stuff as you play with your brother and you hang out with a team that great that goes into that. It doesn't happen by accident, because if nobody's leading well, you could end up in the shadow. And I just never felt like I was.
After he graduated, did you also have the feeling that it's my time and it's my time to enjoy the sunshine?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And because of the team. So I played with Shawn O'Brien and Steve Uziak and other guys that felt that as well. It was our time. Like every year, Coach Anastasi and the squad of coaches did a fantastic job of creating rites of passage from one year to the next. The juniors became the seniors, and those seniors became the leaders. The new captains stepped in and led, and never for a moment did it go by where I didn't feel like, okay, this next year I'm up in some way. I've got to lead in some way. I'm bringing us, I'm responsible to help and to bring this team to another level. So yeah, I enjoyed that. And the idea of being able to step into leadership. A lot of what I learned in football has paid off huge dividends relative to that specific idea. So yeah.
Played 4 years varsity football. You played in 4 TNT games. What do you recall about that? And you were a kid from Tonawanda originally.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that? And what are your thoughts about being involved with that for 4 years and originally being a kid from Tonawanda?
Yeah. So we had a lot of family that lived in Tonawanda, that wrestled for Tonawanda, that played football for Tonawanda. And as I said earlier, I didn't know when I went over to North Tonawanda, I didn't realize it was too young to really catch the vision for the rivalry. But as I grew older, it sure started to burn hotter. And I realized, oh, this is a thing. And if you haven't picked up already, like I'm a loyal supporter of whatever team I'm on, right? So I there are, can I just tell you a story, Ed?
Go right ahead.
All right. So I was over one of the TNT games. The week leading up to TNT was one of my favorite weeks of the year. Still looking back, like my favorite week is that Spirit Week, where like it feels everything's electric. You're having a great time. There's a pep rally on its way. There's parades. There's different things happening. It just felt fantastic. It was like, for me, it was the top of the mountain. And so I had this little 77 Mustang, I don't know, it was a garbage car, but we drove it over to Tonawanda, and I got pulled over. I'm wearing my jersey, and I'm wearing, like, I've got friends in the car, and we're all NT painted out. This is like after the pep rally. I got a shaved head. My head's all painted blue and red. And the Tonawanda police officer is so kind. He pulls us over, and it came up with some reason, I'm sure, why I couldn't drive home. I was over by the Tonawanda Stadium and had to walk home all the way from the Tonawanda Stadium through the middle of downtown Tonawanda over back to NT. And I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to get egged all the way back. Now, it ended up being okay. We got a couple things hollered at us, but it was one of those moments where I was like, I'm going to represent my team, and I don't care who knows it. So it was fun. There might have been some eggs thrown by me that night, but I don't want to say for sure what had happened, but we definitely made it home. In any case, the TNT games were some of my fondest memories. And also, I'll just say this. I was a teenager who was impassioned by rivalry and competition. And so on those fields of TNT football, I would just lose my mind. And sometimes not in the best of ways. So there's things that I learned on the football field from referees, from coaches grabbing me by the back of my shoulder pads, pulling me aside, going, "Hey, calm yourself down, control yourself." And so those moments for me are just as formative as the exciting, all-out knocking heads moment, are me learning how to, okay, wait, calm yourself down, young man, and then go back out and do something productive with that energy and that excitement. So yeah, I remember sneaking into the burning of the Jinx that they would do over in Tonawanda. They had this huge bonfire, and we'd sneak in there and just be like the undercover North Tonawanda guys watching the burning of the Jinx happen and listen for any cues that we could hear from Tonawanda football players. And yeah, thinking I'm hot stuff secret agent North Tonawanda football player.
How was the trash talking back then on the field?
It was there. It was there for sure. I like I said, I didn't hold back. It was really, especially being 5'6" and one of the smaller guys on the line, I had to figure out ways to try to get inside the head of the guy in front of me, learn a little bit about his off-field activities and maybe remind him of them, and do some stuff in the midst of those conversations that would help me get the edge, get him off balance a little bit, so that when the ball moved, you could get past him.
How would you characterize your football playing style as an offensive guard and also then as a defensive lineman?
Yeah, I would say hungry. Like I just was hungry to get to the ball, hungry to make the tackle, and also hungry for my team to win. That's how I would describe it in a word. I think the reason that kind of comes back to me as I think about how I played is, I remember one play, I watched it in the highlights or something, and the TV announcer said something like, Poulsen looks like he's going in for dinner or something. Like, I jumped on the quarterback, and he probably could have, if he thought about it for a second, he probably could have just stood up and threw the ball with me on his shoulder. But I jumped on him and he crumpled. And I remember the announcer saying, looks like Poulsen's, he just wanted that guy for lunch or something like that. And I thought, you know what, that's pretty much what it is I'm hungry to get the next tackle, the next fumble, the next kickoff, whatever it is. I was hungry for it. And I just wanted to, I wasn't, and I'll say this, I wasn't a smart player, right? Like I remember at some point realizing that the linebackers behind me, the quarterback, the running backs, like all these intelligent positions, not saying that the other linemen weren't intelligent, but I remember there being a game within the game that I began to realize was happening after I had started playing, internally, I knew it was happening, but I wasn't fast enough to pick up on that game within the game. So I ended up realizing the best way I can help is to do the hard hitting, simple things that the guys who can understand the game within the game are telling me to do. So that was kind of my style, was follow the command, do it, hit the guy in front of you, get the ball, kind of those simple, straightforward, understanding movements of football that helped train me to be better.
How did it feel to become second team All Western New York in your senior year?
That's a huge honor, right? Because for me, I honestly didn't feel like, I felt like I was, I just didn't deserve any of it, and not because of gameplay or anything like that, but because I had really just thought of myself as like, I'm just going out having fun and trying to play as hard as I can. And that all that stuff was like, wow, people see that and are honoring me. But I kind of always felt like, and maybe should have said it more, that honor really was an honor for the team, more so for me, because of the way that we played together. The guys that I got to play alongside of, I already said Dan, but also guys like Rich Sanko, Chris Wainwright, Steve Uziak, like I said, Rich Argenteri, like those guys, whether they were practice players, whether they were first string, second string, we all, like, you're the sum total of that team. So to me, looking back, and even then, I know that anything that I was able to achieve and have a glory, if you will, is the result of that team working together to make each other better. And I'm super, super grateful for the chance to work alongside of those guys who were willing to show up every day and get in the weight room in the off season and run the extra sprints after practice. And I remember Coach Anastasi's son just hanging out with me after practice and me saying, hey, would you mind if I just ran sprints back and forth? You time me, you tell me like what I can do to get better. And they would. And so it was like just the benefit of having more of that support was immense. So the all Western New York stuff, as a teenager, I was always looking for it. I was looking for it in the news, trying to find it. And then when it happened, I was like, wow, I think my mom cut it out and hung it on the fridge, and thankful for that. It was like right in the middle between all of Dan's stuff, it's right there.
Let's fast forward, 2007. You're named to the North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame. Not too many years, about 11 years after you graduated from high school. What did that mean to you to be named to the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, that's huge. There's guys in that Hall of Fame that have done amazing things. There's men who have traveled the world, who have become doctors, who have become professors, and then there's guys who are like, I'll just say me, where we've had lesser fame of career, and then there's this opportunity we have to be present in a community of people that have shared experience in our history. And so for me, being part of that Hall of Fame isn't about any one of us or any one of the people in that Hall of Fame as much as it is about a tradition of development of leadership in men. And so and for the whole organization, it's being part of something that I perceive to be irreplaceable in our community and culture that needs to be encouraged. So yeah, being part of that was an honor, and really, really special to me.
Considering your high school career, you played 4 years of varsity. Do you have any regrets? Things that you would do differently?
Yeah, I've kind of thought about this because, when you start thinking back about the lens of, you look through a different lens at high school, 20 or so years later, you think about things. And I think my regrets, probably no regrets on the field. I think I regret not saying thank you more. That's probably the biggest thing. Not realizing in that moment, the great kindness and mercy and time away from family that was being spent. And so if I could go back and whisper in young Jeremiah's ear, I'd say, hey, pay attention to what people are sacrificing to give you a shot, and make sure you say thank you for it. So now, with my own 3 kids, I realize what it takes for a grown man or a family to give of time and energy for a coach to be present on the field with a kid like me. And I look back and I just wonder if I ever took that for granted, I would regret that.
How difficult was it for you to take off the helmet and hang up the spikes when your high school career was over with?
Oh, real tough. Very, very difficult to stop playing because it was almost this looming end that I knew was going to happen at the end of high school. That kind of I was somewhat blessed because I knew that I wasn't going to be playing after high school, so I was able to enjoy it while it was happening and not feel kind of forlorn about something this kind of expectation unmet. But when I finished, I did have this sense of like completion. I knew I had done everything I could. There was one, just going back to, there was one game where I felt like, man, I wish I could have given more, because in my senior year, I actually messed up my knee and missed the first or second game. And so as a result of that, I was angry with myself for letting my body slow me down from that season. And so when I did hang up the cleats and the helmet, I knew that I was done and didn't feel too bad about it, but just was like, man, this is good. I hope I squeezed everything out of it.
You became a youth minister where you served in Baldwinsville, New York right now. You've been there roughly 10 years.
Yeah.
What do you take from your North Tonawanda experiences that you might apply in counseling some of today's youths?
I'm super glad you asked that question. In 8th grade, I was at Wrazin Middle School, and I had Mrs. Benson as a science teacher, and they had these tables in the lab where they had sockets all down the center of the table, those outlets that you plug your microscope in or your light into. And I remember being in 8th grade, or this is my first year of 8th grade, and I put a staple in there in the outlet. I'm just like, there's loose staples on the table, and I'm thinking, great idea. I'll take one of these staples and set it in the outlet. I wasn't thinking I'm going to blow this thing up, but I'm like putting them in there and taking them out, just empty-headed, putting them in there and taking them out, and the kid across from me sees me doing it, and he goes, and we didn't say a word to each other, but he starts doing the same thing. And I stop because I'm like, he's doing it. It's boring now. And he gets one stuck in there, right? So I then reach over and I go to grab the one that he had stuck in there to try to help the kid out. And as soon as I touch it, boom, the whole thing blew up in my face. And so I just turned and looked at Mrs. Benson, and she just pointed me out of the room. And so I went down to the principal's office and ended up with in-school suspension for that. And so, but the reason I'm telling that story is because that Friday was like sub day. They had this like sub shop day in the cafeteria where you could go in. It was basically like Subway, and you could make your own sandwich. And so I was this is horrible. I was actually more upset about missing out on sub day than I was about what I had done to that. Because it blew every socket up the strip and then blew the breaker. So it could have been like $20,000 worth of damage to the lab. And I'm more upset about missing sub day than I am about the damage done to the science room. So in any case, 2 days later, I'm sitting in school suspension, and Mrs. Benson comes down, and she's in the door, and she just does one of these, come here. And I'm thinking, it's over. Like I'm done. I'm going to walk with her into the principal's office, and they're just going to kick me out. It's over. And she didn't say a word. She just did that. And then I followed her into the principal's office, and then we made a turn into this little side room. And as we turned into the side room, she had gone into the cafeteria and gotten like all the fixings for sub sandwiches. And even though we both knew that I was an idiot kid that did a stupid thing, and I should pay for it, and I did. She took the time to go and get these things and make this day special for me in a way that she had absolutely no need to. Like she went over and above to show me kindness and care and love and mercy. And so there was this moment that encapsulates so many other moments of my experience at North Tonawanda, where I deserved to be put out. I deserved to be set aside and outside of opportunity. But there were individuals that said to me, hey, we're going to move forward through this. We're going to give you an opportunity to know acceptance and belonging. And we care about you, and we believe in you. And so even though I was making mistakes, there was an ongoing process where people cared. And so people cared beyond my stupidity. And I gave them every reason not to, for sure. And so that attitude, that care that I felt from the teachers and the coaches at North Tonawanda is a big part of what now causes me to want to pass that forward, to help others be part of a movement of kindness and mercy and grace, and getting past people's stupidity and helping them in places that they can't help themselves.
Applying it to today, do some of these youths realize what you're doing and appreciate that?
Oh yeah. There's a whole lot of them that remind me of myself in 8th grade. And that's probably great that I just kind of look at them and think, I know where you're at, I know what's going on. And some of them are in that place where they need tough love, and other ones hear it and know it the first time and it clicks. And then other ones, they're teaching me, and so, I think I have a lot of hope for the next generation. I think, this past year is a great testimony of the durability of humankind and our willingness to shift and change. And what the word of the year seems to be pivot. So it just seems like there's been a lot of things thrown at this generation that one, they're showing their resilience, but also two, I think there's a very clear and present need for men and women like who I had in my life to walk alongside of them, this next generation, as they weather the storms of change and transition.
You're meeting somebody for the first time and you're having a conversation with them. You're talking about where you grew up at and maybe your athletic career. What do you tell people about North Tonawanda and the experiences that you had and what you learned from them?
Yeah, usually if I'm talking about North Tonawanda, I would usually it'll come up and I'll share something about the toughness of my friends and family and people who grew up there, the ability to overcome difficulty. Tonawanda North Tonawanda rivalry always comes up. I'll probably quickly say, yeah, then there's this other town right across the canal that's called Tonawanda. And there's this TNT game that happens every year. And so, or that I experienced growing up that happened every year. And so that is a big part of kind of hometown pride for me. I can't help but talk about the experiences that I've had in wrestling and in football anytime North Tonawanda comes up. It's the first thing on my mind when I start talking about North Tonawanda is athletics and the time that I was able to spend with those friends and family.
We've talked a lot of different subjects during this conversation. What would you like to talk about that I haven't asked you?
We've covered a lot, and I think I don't know if you did a great job of giving me the chance to talk about what brought about change in my life as a result of North Tonawanda. The only thing that I would say is I would go back to Mrs. Benson and just kind of say to all those teachers who are looking at those kids in their classes that they don't know if they've got a clue in the world. They probably don't. Those kids don't have a clue in the world, but at some point they will, and they could be the biggest miracle that you've ever seen because of something you do that you never had to do in the first place, but you just felt like doing it. And so Mrs. Benson isn't around to be able to hear this, but I'm thankful for them, thankful for those teachers that still give day in and day out to the kids of North Tonawanda.
One last question. Of any vocation in the world that you could have gone into, why did you choose ministry?
Well, I was actually a welder before I went into ministry. I welded for 13 years and love welding. It's a great career path. I learned how to weld at Bosie's up in Niagara County and paid the bills greatly, loved it. And one day I was in the shop and I was watching we were building, there's a great place over in Amherst that builds expansion joints for bridges and highways. And I was working there and I saw one expansion joint going out on a truck and I saw the next one coming in, and it was the exact same joint going out and the new one coming in. And I thought I could spend the rest of my life working in this shop, building and repairing these expansion joints, which is a great career path, pays the bills, good benefits. But is that the thing that I've been put on this planet to do? Is that the thing that I've been put on this planet to do? And it hung with me. That question just hung with me. And I thought, I wonder if it's possible that if I chose to say yes to helping other people, could I be used to help people in the way that other people help me? And so as a result of just saying yes to that, kind of call it whatever you want, a calling, a desire, a vision to help people, I decided in 2008 that my wife and I decided that there's something about me, about Jeremiah, that was wired to help other people. So I wanted to do that, and I took the giant risky leap of moving from a very stable full-time welding job to helping people as a youth pastor. So, and it's been great. It's been great. It was risky. It hasn't been easy, that's for sure. And I think probably going back to football and wrestling, I learned a lot about life not being easy and working hard to do the thing that you've been called to do.
Jeremiah Poulsen, I want to thank you so much for joining me here today on the North Tonawanda Football Hall of Fame YouTube channel. Interesting story that you have. You are a 2007 inductee into the Hall of Fame. I wish you well. I wish you good health. And once again, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Ed. Really appreciate it. It's been great.